All right. I think this is working. The former moderator, Sara, set the bar very high with keeping us on time. So we're going to dive right into this next discussion. Billie Jean King once said, "Sports teaches you character. It teaches you to play by the rules. It teaches you to know what it feels like to win and how to lose. It teaches you about life." When Engage set up this panel, I feel like they knew what they were doing a little bit here and bringing the thread of the four of us together. The three women to my left have incredible backgrounds in education and playing sports and athletics, all pursuing their own very different hopes, dreams, and passions. Whether it's Coach King here in the NFL making history and an impact, Devoria here running alongside the next generation of young women, helping shape the future, and Jackie from the White House to the Capitol steps, you're reporting on what the world needs to know. The Engage team talks, and Rachel talks a lot about the thread, and the thread here that brings us all together is what has shaped us around our kitchen tables, in our classrooms, and with our families. We have all been shaped a great deal by who we are in this world because of those different factors. So let's dive right in. I've spent the last 22 years of working in the disability field. So much of what I've witnessed in our adults, and mostly those with Down syndrome that I've had the opportunity to advocate alongside with, they have a few commonalities of those success stories. It starts with early intervention, those birth to 3 programs. It talks about and supports those supports and services. Usually in these families, there's a tenacious advocate. Typically, it's a mom and an incredible support system. Relating this back to this panel, I think it comes down to that nature versus nurture. So to my panelists here, how do we collectively encourage those young girls to pursue their full potential, both inside and outside of the classroom? Coach King, do you want to dive in and start?
Sure. I think for me, it started very young with my parents giving me a sense of confidence. They allowed me to try all the crazy things I wanted to try growing up, and that built the confidence in me. And as I grew older, as I decided to move into a career, I wasn't afraid to try new things. I wasn't afraid to challenge myself, because they allowed me to do that growing up my whole life. The exception of playing football as a kid, they would allow me to do anything. They would let me try it. If I didn't like it, whatever, it didn't happen. But, I'm thankful for that. I think it's so important to build the confidence from such a young age. And no matter, say, if you're afraid to try it, you shouldn't be afraid to let them try it. If it's something you may not want to do, that doesn't matter. They may want to try it, and they may be good at it. They may be their passion, and you don't even know it. So I think it's important to allow children to try new things, to allow them to grow, to dream. And I think ultimately that's how you build strong adults.
Taking risk is such a big factor. Devoria?
Yes, good morning, everyone. At Girls on the Run, we serve girls in grades 3 through 8, so ages 8 through 13, and we teach them life skills. When people hear Girls on the Run, they think it's a running program, but it's so much more. So these life skills transfer from our practices after school to the classroom and vice versa. Girls are learning how to build relationships, how to solve conflict, and they're learning how to give back to their communities. And we see this show up in the classroom day in and day out. As a former educator, I can recall many days when being in a classroom, I would ask a question, and before I could even finish it, there were a number of hands up, the majority being our boys. Now, were they always answering the questions correctly? Probably not, because they didn't even hear the entire question. But they had the confidence. They were ready. They were ready to answer. It didn't matter if it was the correct answer or not. And I would often look at the girls in the room who I knew the answer, and I'm wondering, why isn't your hand up? And I would always say to them, to never let someone do for you what you can do for yourself. If you know the answer, raise your hand. Don't wait for the person to the right of you or to the left of you to do it for you, and then you're saying quietly, oh, I knew that. I wish I would have raised my hand. Raise it, because the boys will do it for the next question and the next question and the next question without hesitating.
Jackie?
Well, I guess you could follow sort of the mold that my dad did, which he was a first-generation, very stereotypically Spanish Catholic boy who was not allowed to play sports growing up, and so his goal in life was to make my brother and I into athletic specimens and live vicariously through us, which meant throwing whatever ball we were interested in that day at us, starting at the age of 2. And fortunately, both of us organically embraced that. I think that there are obviously a myriad of ways to get your child, your daughter, out there in the first place, but that, it in general is just it's sort of a trial and error exercise. And even through that process, whether or not your child rejects or embraces a sport, they are learning something about themselves. I feel like I'm probably full of very cheesy cliches that I might not have believed in the moment when I was playing basketball at Harvard. I played basketball basically from 3 years old through college, very competitively. But I think in retrospect, really being on the court or on a field or on a pitch is sort of a laboratory of life and allows you to explore yourself, discover what your skills are, even if it's not necessarily the actual technical skills of that sport. Maybe you discover that you're really good at communicating, or you learn how to better communicate with your peers. There are so many different facets of engaging in a sport that I think really allow a girl to discover so much about herself.
I love that, a laboratory for life. Engage is a true example of women supporting women, and all of us in this room and the men are just a testimonial to that. When I was first running for Congress a couple years ago and got to know Congresswoman Bice extremely well, everyone told me when I raised my hand to run that I needed to go talk to the women's groups first. I found this interesting because no one was telling my peers that were also running those men that they needed to go talk to the men's groups. Because really, those don't exist. So in many ways, I love this. We need these forums to have a positive support in our lives as women. It's like one big team working toward the same goal. I need these women in my life, these support systems, and folks that knew what I was going through. So how can the involvement in sports teach us to set these healthy boundaries and build these positive relationships with peers and mentors? Coach King?
Sports obviously have been everything to me. There's people I played with when I was 8 years old that I still talk to, today. I think as she talked about sports build so much character, communication, just development overall, self-esteem in young girls to be on an athletic team. And I think so many life skills that I learned in sports because they're proving grounds. You develop. You have to develop to get better. And I think it's important in sport for girls to do that, to know that they're strong, to know that they're powerful, to know that they're elite at whatever they want to do. So I think it's huge for sports to develop those types of attributes as they grow older.
There's so many words that you just said that pops to mind. When I think of Girls on a Run, when we tell our girls that they are unique, that they are strong, to never let anyone dim their star power. A part of our curriculum that focuses on building healthy relationships with your peers and with your adults. So the girls are learning to build those peer-to-peer relationships in practice that transfer to the classroom, to home oftentimes, and in their communities, as well as with adults. And our program has over 700 mentors who yearly give of their time and understand the importance. And we know that girls benefit, or children in general, benefit for mentor relationships. They grow up, they end up giving back themselves. They end up going to college when they have a mentor in their life. And so it's really a healthy relationship for them to build between peers and their mentors.
Yeah, there's no doubt that winning instills confidence. My boyfriend always remarks how he can't believe how healthy a sense of self-confidence that I have at any sport that I still play to this day. But, and then that confidence, I think, certainly translates to the workplace. But I think losing instills confidence too, and it sort of teaches you this idea that even if you lose, you're still on the team. You are still a contributing member, and you still have another chance to get out there and do better and learn from that loss and use it in a constructive fashion. But I think in terms of even just moving a little bit broader, being more philosophical about it, I work with this organization called Peace Players International, which uses sports and basketball in particular to foster peace in conflict zones or post-conflict zones. I traveled with a group to Israel where they have Palestinian and Israeli girls playing together. And it is an extremely important part of these girls' lives in terms of breaking boundaries, setting new boundaries, especially for a lot of the Palestinian girls who are in sort of traditionally Muslim families and are not encouraged to play sports, show their skin, be physical in that way. And it also has opened up whole new worlds for both of these sides. The ability to develop friendships, learn things about other people, understand new cultures, and in that process, hopefully, work very slowly towards equality and hopefully one day peace.
Amazing. I thought of this question, and we should have added it to the script here, Toby and Laura, but we should have made our fellow panelists talk about their nicknames in sports kind of growing up, because that would have been highly entertaining. I bet, Coach King, you have some good ones as well as I do. We live in a world that, what I call the era of here to stay, social media. It's certainly not going away, and having these accounts is just resilient in itself. Having social media is resilient in itself. I know firsthand, just being in the public eye through my congressional race, running disability organizations, and I'm sure you all have experienced this. But in terms of kind of going forward, what are those cultural or societal factors that contribute to girls' vulnerability to the negative effects of social media, and how can we address this from a systemic perspective?
That's very difficult just because of the power of social media. I think that's why it's very important to start young, to let people know that they're beautiful, that they're strong. Because if you just let social media do it, it's not going to be what normal people look like, right? And there's all types of filters and things that go into that, and people see this and they think that's what they should look like. This is the weight they should be. This is what their lashes should look like. And that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I think that starts with your base, with your core, and with strong role models telling you that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be different. You are you. And, God built you the way that you are, and that's fine. You don't have to look like an Instagram model to be successful. And they don't. Most of them, they're not successful. They're taking pictures with their filters, and that's it. They don't have a lot going on. But I think it's important. But you have to build that, because if that's all you see, and you don't have anyone telling you that you don't have to look this way, it's very difficult to do.
As we know, at age 9, many girls, their self-esteem, their self-confidence begins to disappear, for lack of a better term, unfortunately. And between ages 10 and 13, 50% of girls experience bullying of some sort. And so at Girls on the Run, we spend so much time focusing on combating those societal influences, the negative peer pressures, them constantly being bombarded by these images that are unrealistic, as you just mentioned. And those images constantly, they just kind of knit and they pick and they erode at a girl's self-esteem or self-esteem in general. So we focus heavily on building that confidence through many strategies. Positive self-talk, for example. I mean, how many of us had a difficult conversation with ourselves this morning, may have said something negative to ourselves this morning? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. Maybe you all did Girls on the Run. I'm still a work in progress. But this morning, I had these talks with myself. Why was I invited? Am I ready? Can I sit on this panel? And I had to stop and pause and say to myself, you deserve to be here. You have something to say, a voice. And so and then I started getting nitpicky about my left eyebrow. And I'm thinking, okay, Devoria, now you're going way too far. But it's important for our girls to know that that their confidence, it comes from within. And then your network of people around you constantly reminding the girls that they have a voice and they need to be heard, they should be heard.
Yeah, I feel like I could go in a million different directions with my answer to this. But I think from just a biological level, there's nothing better than those endorphins that you get from exercising, sweating, connecting with other people, and being on the field for an extended period of time, away from your phone, totally detached from Instagram, Facebook, Be Real, whatever social media app that you are addicted to, where your performance, your connection with others, none of that is, dependent. You're not doing that for anyone else. You are not, and you are sort of detached from this gaze, the societal gaze that I think so many people have become susceptible to, especially, unfortunately, young women. I think on another level, just having that camaraderie, developing relationships with people different than yourself, becoming really close, just like siblings with people who you are on a team with, helps build that confidence as well. There's really nothing more vulnerable than being in a locker room with 12 other girls. You're all naked, showering. You're doing it every day, and becoming more and more comfortable with it yourself, your body, not being ashamed of who you are. It is the best way, I think, to get to know yourself and become really comfortable with who you are, and in turn be embraced by people around you for who you are.
So we really have a challenge before us of where do we go from here? So I guess to each of you, what advice would you give to parents and caregivers seeking to raise those resilient, mentally strong girls?
I think get them in programs. Girls on the
Good
Run.
plug.
Different sports programs, or whatever their interests are. They may not like sports. They may like something, though. Get them involved with other kids. And it starts at home. Let them know that they're beautiful. Let them know that they can do whatever they want to do. So I think it's very important to get them involved very early. I don't know how my parents drove me all of my practices when I was young, but they did, and it built so much in me. And I'm thankful for that, and I think everybody should try to do that.
I think it starts with conversations like these, continuing to have these conversations, and then putting action behind it, like having a Girls on the Run program that breaks down barriers so that all girls can participate, not just those whose families can afford it. Jennifer mentioned earlier in her first answer around just letting your child, your daughter, be who she is. We have some certain expectations, and I understand it. My mother, when she was here, our lives were totally different, right? But she never tried to dim my star power. It was, Devoria, you go. And I think that's important, just constantly encouraging. I obviously am a black woman, but I also am a dark-skinned black woman. So it was very difficult growing up in South Philadelphia. But understanding the importance that beauty is within, that I had something to offer. My mother always instilled education in me. And so, again, what you're saying about encouraging, and allowing girls to have a voice is very important.
Yeah, I think listening is really key. My father in particular, he actually spent the majority of his time at home raising my brother and I, and he was sort of our soccer mom. And he was always just listening to us, our needs, what we were more interested in, less interested in. I remember I was, until basically high school, I was playing basketball, soccer, and swimming competitively, and had a conversation with him one day where I told him I couldn't take another swim practice where I had to stare at the bottom of the floor for 2 hours. And he said, okay, like, you've put in your time, I hear you, and let's pivot to focusing strictly on basketball. He also was just such a creative encourager. He would put little notes over our bathroom sinks for us, like, never give up, and be your best self. Just little, it would cut out, inspirational Phil Knight quotes from the newspaper. Just went out of his way to offer us little bits of encouragement every single day, but also was fine stepping in and sort of providing the discipline when we needed it, where maybe after a particularly hard loss or tough practice or maybe an injury, sort of giving us tough love, and understanding sort of, when we needed tough love versus just parental love. But I think on the flip side of that, also really helping your child understand that it's not about necessarily being the best, but about being your best, and finding the ways that you can contribute and trying not to get caught up in yard sticking, which is a daily challenge that I even struggle with every single day.
Well, thank you to this incredible panel. My leadership philosophy has always been, and I think sports taught me this, is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And sports, education, and activities have certainly, I think, helped put us all here at the table. And Gage is really that megaphone, helping all of us incredible women around this room have a voice, and hopefully having the next resilient generation of women. So let's give this panel a wonderful round of applause, and thank you all.